start out always by seeing if anyone has a comment they want to make, or does anyone have a... It's our open mic. Okay, well, since no one does, we'll go. Can I have a motion? Since I don't have the minutes, it's kind of tough. Okay. Can we have an approval of the minutes of the regular meeting of September 17th?
So moved.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Mr. Murphy, you have some financial news for us.
Yes, ma'am. Good morning, everyone. Your tablet should have the financial information I'll be going over for the cash inflows and outflows for the Development Authority activity. First page should be your operating account activity. We're covering the month of September. We have over $4.6 million of operating funding on hand. For your cash receipts, you'll see for under our lease income for Virginia National, we did collect over $50,000 in the operations and capital maintenance components of their rent. And our alone other receipt was our interest income, earning over $3,000 on the savings and CDs the authority maintains. For your disbursements, I was going to touch upon the engineering fees line item. See the Kimley Horn, over $12,000 be expended for work being done at Corporate Landing. Skipping down to the bottom of your under special projects, we have over $120,000 being remitted to Live Nation. This is money that's received from the city. It passes through the authority to Live Nation for capital maintenance improvements they've made at the amphitheater. In this case being a parking lot, light, and pole marker replacements they've had in their parking lot there. And then just below that for the corporate park, we have the ongoing stormwater plan that Kimley Horn has been working on. Over $5,700 coming from the infrastructure budget we have for that corporate park. Happy to answer any questions anyone has on the operating account inflows and outflows. If not, I'll move to the incentive program. Have a bit more activity. We're covering the month of September with over $5.2 million of cash on hand. For our receipts, it was just interest we earned on the checking account, over $1,100 in that account. For our disbursements, I know the font's a little tight here, so I'll go over them. We had 3 different incentive awards. The first 2 were under Part A. There was Hermes Abrasive, if I'm pronouncing this right, Wasserhund Brewing, for capital investment those companies had occur. Those are both partial payments of their overall award going out. Then below that, we have a Part C, which is APZ1, to Yummy Goodness for the capital investment that company made, over $1,500 being paid, again, a partial payment on their overall award. Under what we have as our Part D of the incentive program, most of this is going to be engineering or appraisal fees, various consultants we work with, over $47,000. The majority of that going to Kimley Horn for engineering fees for city initiative projects, being either Dome Site, Historic Kempsville, London Bridge Commerce Center, or Princess Anne Commons. We also did have an appraisal, over $1,800 for that Princess Anne Winterbury Lane parcel, which the authority, I believe, approved at their August meeting. Below that, for the Dome Site, we had over $80,000 being expended. The majority of that being payments for the development agreement that's being done by Singer Davis. And to answer a previous question we had, we'll be recording all those expenses in anticipation of a future bond being issued for that project, at which point we'll be reimbursed from that bond proceeds. We did also have a smaller expense related to Leisure Development Partners, being 50% of the travel. As part of that 50% split we have on the overall, some of the other Dome Site related expenses. And then finally, over $1,000 for the biopark, bio initiative funding being expended for that. So when we have a reconciliation of available incentive funding moving forward after the end of September, we adjust your receivables and commitments, and we're looking at just over $3,720,921 in available incentive funding as of the end of September. Happy to answer any questions anyone has on the incentive inflows and outflows. If not, thank you very much.
Madam Chair.
Yes, he's gonna do the audit.
And can I move to the
Of
written?
course you can.
I just, just a moment, I want to take a moment and commend Sean. Each month, we see a little more, if you think back to where we were just a few months ago, where our financials were a handout, and
it's
really,
great.
and nobody saw them, and you look at where we are today, and each month, there's a little more refinement of what you're seeing, and Sean is doing that all on his own, of his own initiative. And I just want to commend him for the progress that we have made in sort of publicly sharing our financials, so, thank you.
Thank you much.
Thank you, Sean. Now, who's going to do the fiscal report? Mr. Coleman, Ms. Coleman?
Ms. Coleman.
I believe we have a representative from our external auditors, the same auditors working on the overall city's financial report. Aries Coleman is here for the presentation for the findings for the Development Authority's 2019 report.
Good morning. Thank you very much for allowing me the opportunity to present the fiscal 19 financial statements for the Development Authority. It's not going to take up too much of your time. I'm going to go over some main points of the audit as well as some required communications that we must do with governance. So we'll talk about our audit approach, the results of the audit, and as I mentioned before, a couple of required communications that we must make with you as part of the audit process. So our audit approach, when you look at an audit and we give you an opinion, and a lot of times like, what is that? What does that mean? When an audit under auditing standards, it require us to do a risk-based approach on internal controls, as well as the preparation of the information that's in the financial statements to make sure they're reasonably stated. Not 100%, doesn't mean that there couldn't be any errors, but reasonably, they are materially correct, and that anyone who's using these statements would get the same conclusion that we had as far as the financial results. So with that, we gave unmodified opinion, which is the highest assertion or level of opinion that we can give on the financial statements, which means that the financial statements were materially correct. We didn't find any errors or departure from government auditing standards or general accepted accounting principles. We also look at the internal controls as part of the audit process, and we issue a letter. And we can't say everything is going right. What we can say is that we did not see any significant deficiencies or material weaknesses. All in all, it's a good letter. So both of these are saying that these are the highest form of opinions that we can give over internal controls and your opinion for your financial statements. As part of the audit, there's a couple of things that we must make known. One is that the financial statements are the responsibility of management. We want to thank Sean, Taylor, and the City of Virginia Beach finance staff for putting the financial statements together. And what we have the pleasure of doing is reviewing them, applying selected procedures to the financial statements, and then rendering an opinion on the composition and the material within the financial statements. But the financial statements are management. You see the auditor's opinion, that belongs to my firm, as well as the internal control letter that belongs to my firm. All the other pages, I don't know, it was like 40, 50 pages. They're all management's, they are comprised by management, and they do belong to the Development Authority. We look at the aspects of the accounting principles. They are in the notes of the financial statements. And what I always tell when I do these presentations, there's a lot of information, and if you're not an accountant, some of it doesn't make any sense. But if you go to, it's two areas. We have, it's MD&A, which is kind of the first 6 or 7 pages before the financial statements, gives you an overview of year-to-year comparison of financial activity for the authority. And then the other place is the notes. And what the notes do is kind of break down into layman's terms all the information on the financial statements. So if you really want something to read before you go to bed because you can't sleep, those are the best areas. But you also will learn a little bit about, we're the numbers people, but the notes and MD&A are really the best place for you to get an understanding of what is in the financial statements. All right, so when we prepare the financial statements, there are a couple items that what we call our estimates, which means we look at them for reasonableness, but they're not a hard number. And when I say a hard number, when you look at cash, cash is real. You can tell how much cash you have in the bank. We talk about depreciable lives for fixed assets. It's an estimate how long that asset will last, and then that's estimated over the life of that asset. Same thing with your allowance for receivables. You look at that receivable and you determine whether or not you're actually going to collect it. If part of it is deemed uncollectible, there's an allowance. It's an estimate. We concluded that all the estimates used for the financial statements were reasonably stated, and there was no sensitive information disclosed in the financial statements. During the audit, we did not encounter any difficulties with management. There were no disagreements. Management did sign a representation letter stating that all the information they provided with the financial statements was reasonable and materially accurate. Management did not consult with any other auditors as opposed, and if we look at this as they had a matter that was sensitive, and they may not like our, my firm, CLA's stance on that matter. Sometimes you have companies or entities that will go out and ask another firm and say, well, if I was to hire you and this was a situation, what would your outcome be? And we call it opinion shopping because the outcome should be the same no matter what, because it should be all based on the same principles. That did not occur with the authority. There was no significant issues discussed with management prior to our retention for the 2019 audit. And as we mentioned, there was no findings that were presented that were not previously discussed. So we noted there was an unmodified opinion and that there was no significant deficiencies or material weaknesses. So a good outcome for everything. And last, we do not express any opinions on the supplemental information, which is your schedules in the back of the financial statements. Okay. So I thank everyone again. If there are any questions.
I want to thank you for doing a wonderful job, and also our staff. It is so nice to come and hear that we're doing things right.
Great. Thank you.
And Madam Chair, may I be
Yes,
recognized?
of course.
So, thanks to Ms. Coleman, she was an absolute delight to work with through this process. All the questions that she asked of us were reasonable. She gave us an appropriate amount of time to respond, and just want to voice how much we appreciated working with her on the audit. Also, we're a department with one accountant, and Sean does a fine job for us. But putting together, going through an annual audit is a heavy lift, and we would not have made it through without the assistance and support of the city's finance department. Alice Kelly, our finance director, is here today, as well as Miriam Woodson, the city's comptroller. These ladies were an amazing help to us through this process. Support for Sean, also help, basically just making sure that we were able to be responsive while keeping the department running. Because again, we've got EDIP. As you saw today, our local economy is strong. We have a lot of projects underway right now, and Sean is the only guy that we've got reconciling those EDIP requests. And so, I just want to take a minute and thank the city's finance department for their assistance in pulling this together, and again recognize Sean and thank Ms. Coleman.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Any questions, any comments? I hope that you will all read this and have a report back to them. So, let's see. You're up again, Mr. Harris.
I'll go over here this time.
Thank you. Thank you so much. Thank you.
Okay, so the day of the audit seemed like a great day to carry on, to have this conversation as well. So you all will remember back a few months ago in February, you approved an update to our EDIP policy, which we then took to City Council. City Council subsequently approved that in March. But what we have not done in a long time is one, come back and talk about specifically what changes we made to the policy, but also we thought this was a great opportunity to provide an overview as we have a lot of new faces at the table. Talk about what EDIP is, what it does, and how it works in our community. So we're killing two birds with one stone. One is, like I say, here are the changes we made. Two, and here's why they matter. Also, it's important to note that what Ms. Coleman just finished auditing were our financial statements and basically the ways in which we go about reporting that information and ensuring its accuracy and things of that nature. The EDIP is a policy document, and so where this wouldn't specifically have been something she reviewed, it really feeds in there. And so again, we think that there's a close connection between the two and wanted you to see them on the same day. So what's the purpose of the EDIP? It was, the EDIP was basically something that was adopted in 1994 to enhance your ability to sort of curate our local economy. And that really came through two ways. It came through two things, job creation, capital investment, and then basically, on the job creation and capital investment side, we look at two tactics. It's basically attracting businesses to the region, retaining the businesses we have. If you think about our gross domestic product, you've got an add rate and you've got a fall-off rate. We need the add rate to be greater than the fall-off rate for our economy to grow. So your EDIP was meant to be a tool to facilitate that action. The EDIP funds are generated solely from a portion of the cigarette tax. That is, as most of you have heard us say, that is a dwindling source of revenue, but it is still robust today. This year it was in the neighborhood of $2.3 million. EDIP awards are approved by the Development Authority based on the director's recommendation. So that's an important thing to note. How do they get to you? The staff does the work, and then they flow up through me as sort of the person sitting, your liaison sitting at the table with you, and then they are there for your discussion, analysis, and approval. EDIP requires job creation and retention of new capital investment. I'm going to talk about how that works primarily in Part A and Part B. We're not going to talk about Part C today. Part C is generally used as part of the APZ-1 program, and so if you ever want a deep dive on APZ-1, we'll come back and do that as well, but A and B are the two that you most often see here at the table. Part A requires, there are three components to an EDIP Part A award. We're looking for a return on investment of less than 3 years. What does that mean? So from the time that we pay it out, we're on a 3-year clock to generate, basically to recover the public's investment. Now, you'll see I put and or. It's going to be an important distinction between Part A and Part B in just a moment. So return on investment of less than 3 years and or, so it can be either, capital investment, basically that generates $25 of new investment for every $1 of public investment, or EDIP, and or jobs through at 4 values. Now, what does this mean? So $1,000 EDIP equals at least 1 job excluding benefits at basically a full-time job below $35,000 a year, and then you can see the thresholds that follow there. That is, you can think of those as a per job qualifier. So if there's 100 jobs, there are more that are available. It is rare that we pay out the maximum in this space, and that's something that we'll want to talk about as a next steps thing maybe at the end of this presentation on what a subsequent presentation might look like. But the idea is, here are the thresholds. And why these thresholds? These are a direct lift from a Commonwealth program so that we could have the ability to use EDIP in some cases as a local match for a larger investment that's being made at the Commonwealth level. So it's not uncommon that in a number of the Commonwealth sort of various incentive programs that there will be a developer match or a local match that's part of a very large award. These are the thresholds that they use in most of those, so it worked for us to use those same thresholds at a lower value. So now as we move on to B, let me talk, you notice the or drops off of the first item. ROI of less than 4 years and. Big difference between Part A and Part B. So when we write policy, when we see and or, it means that we can do one or the other. It can be those two things or it can be just the one. On a Part B award, the or is off. So there's a twofold test for every Part B award. And so that twofold test is a return on investment of 4 years or less, and at minimum, $12.50 of new capital investment per dollar of EDIP or public investment. And so if you think Part B is a much more rigorous threshold to attain. It has traditionally been used for large projects. You'll remember we used Part B recently for the project that you all approved at Bonnie Road, which is contemplated to be, it was a $600,000 award, but it's contemplated to generate over $40 million in new capital investment in our community. And so, again, when we think of Part B, we are generally thinking about large projects that have a profound effect on the local economy. Part B comes with a couple of additional strings. One, Part B dollars must be part of the general appropriation through the cigarette tax from City Council. But also, and this is the big one, we are prohibited from using more than 50% of the EDIP dollars we receive in any year for a Part B award. So this year, we got in the neighborhood of 2.3 million. So if we were to split that right down the middle and it was $1.15 million, that's the maximum that we could put into a Part B award in any year. So important to know there's a restriction on the amount of Part B that we can use. Now I want to talk briefly about some work that started really before November with the staff initiative when our deputy city manager Ron Williams was sort of serving as the first interim development director before I got here. And so we started with a review of the EDIP and sort of recognizing that we had not updated this policy in several years. We thought it was time to look at it. And so we worked both internally with some of you, with our council liaisons, and then also with Mr. Ramias, the city's internal auditor, to do a policy review of our document. And that came back with 12 recommendations. 11 of those have now been implemented. No, excuse me, that's a misprint. 12 we have implemented all of them at this point, and both you and City Council have approved the new document. So these are some quick procedural changes that weren't necessarily captured in the document, but that flowed out of that work. One, we've updated the written disbursement controls to include ACH and electronic check processing. That's just, call that welcome to 2019. Paper checks are going away and we needed to be responsive. The VBDA chair, when performing her financial review of invoices, reviews each prior monthly bank statement to verify payments. This is just a nice check for you all to have on us as a team to make sure that we're carrying out the work you tell us to do. Basically, this is your way of reviewing and ensuring that we're getting them, to use a term from City Hall, get the iron out the door. Number 3, economic development implement dual approval prior to the ACH. So a check basically to ensure that there are multiple eyes, at least two sets of eyes looking at these transactions. Adopt a written procurement policy similar to the city's. Now, important to note, when spending public funds, we were always subject to the Virginia Public Procurement Act. However, what you did not have, you didn't have small purchase procedures, and so what we did, we came back and we mirrored the city's small purchase procedures. So for two things: one, because that's an existing standard that is well known throughout the city that we knew that we could deliver. Also, it aligned us with the city and provided a great transparency matrix sort of opportunity for those small purchases, so that someone who was looking at a city transaction of $5,000 would see the same documentation backing an authority purchase of $5,000. So, want to commend Mr. Stiles for his work on developing those, along with Dana Harmeyer in the city attorney's office. Developed as we are all here today looking at the cameras in the room, we developed a plan to publicly broadcast these meetings, and I want to thank Julie Hill and her team for being here now every month for the last 6 months to help us accomplish that. And then finally, on the procedural side, the Development Authority's accountant has worked with the city comptroller to return $131,000 for an active CIP project. This is something we found is weird. That money had been out there for at least 10 years, if not 12, and it was just sort of floating out there. With the assistance of the city's finance department, Sean was able to run that back to the beginning, isolate an amount, and we return that to the city where it should have been. This is basically leftover money from a whole lot of CIPs that we did over the years that just sat there. So it's just a piece of bookkeeping that we were able to clean up. The recommendations that were, and I'll move through these quickly, but the first one, basically that we that the EDIP award resolutions and grant awards and grant awards to businesses only after the criteria are met specifically for capital investment and not new capital investment, not existing capital investment. And we adopted that with the policy language, with the new language that Mr. Stiles drafted there to the left. The second, the developer or subcontractor that the city would have full access. Call this an audit clause. We had the ability to look at the recipient's background documentation, but we didn't necessarily have the ability to look at their subcontractor data, which we felt was important to basically ensure that work was being done consistent with what you all had approved. And so we improved that language as well to account for that. This is another one. Full access to all records supporting the verification of performance. You're going to see in a moment that one of the biggest changes that we made in the final document was basically a requirement for me to have clawback provisions and performance and more robust performance criteria on every award that we make. So for us to do that, we had to have we had to be able to look at all records to verify that performance, and we've adopted that change as well. We found that it was difficult to understand sometimes what we were doing when we were closing out an award. So there was a recommendation that staff work together to put together a summary for all of you of what we did, why we did it, and if it performed at the end of an EDIP. We also adopted that change. Additional changes that just came out of that, opportunity zones and strategic growth areas either did not exist or were brand new concepts last time we talked about an EDIP procedural update. So we've updated the policy to specifically address activities that we can do in those two places. To accomplish the things, to identify between existing capital investment and new capital investment, we added definitions to the policy to say, okay, here's what qualifies as capital investment. Here's what qualifies as a new job. Here's how we define a project. And so that additional definition allows us to be more prescriptive in the way that we carry out the work as well. We adopted reporting requirements from the director so basically, I call this the show my work provision. When I stand in front of you, I have to be able to show my work and tell you why we're making the recommendation that we're making, and be willing to show you the math behind it, particularly in a Part B award. Sunset and clawback provisions are now specifically spoken to and required on all EDIPs where we are doing, basically, where we are counting, I would tell you, non-capital items toward the award. So if we're counting, if it's land and a building, that's pretty easy to quantify. Machinery, tools, furniture, fixture, so those other items, particularly IT equipment, things of that nature. This is the requirement where we're now having to put back some sort of clawback provision in the event that in those areas don't perform as well. We've added the language a number of places to emphasize, particularly in the application, that EDIPs are discretionary. They are not an entitlement. And that's an important thing to know. EDIP stands for Economic Development Investment Program. It is not an incentive program. It is not an entitlement program. It is an investment, which is why going back to the very beginning, you all establish returns on investment as part of the things that we have to quantify when we bring them to you. So it's important to note these are investments. They are not entitlements, and basically there has to be some basis for the award. The question that we ask ourselves in the office now is, what is keeping this project from happening? What are we doing to make this project happen? Is that appropriate? And so those are the questions we're asking ourselves now. We're trying to solve those mathematically whenever we can. EDIP grants are available for new locations and expansions as well as the retention of existing businesses. We've always talked about retention, but as it relates to the expansion, we weren't maybe as clear as we could have been. And so here's where that matters. I mean, one of the things that we often hear in the community is that we're not a location for corporate headquarters of large companies. Well, if you look around the country, generally, the corporate headquarters of large companies exist where those companies started, grew, expanded, and sort of were an integral part of sort of the local business community. One of the things that we need to do if we're ever going to get into that conversation is we've got to be able to make sure that we're creating an environment where our large corporate partners are able to continue to expand and grow and stay here with us. And so we believe that we're more prescriptive in that with that language as well. That is all I have about this. I'm happy to take any questions, and then with your permission, I'd like to mention a couple of maybe a next presentation.
Any questions?
Great.
Thank you so much, Taylor. Appreciate it.
Thank you. So as a next step, what we'd like to do, now that the policy document has been updated, now that you've been briefed on it, as we've continued to work through this, what we're finding is it probably makes sense for us to take even a further step procedurally. Now, I don't think this is a change to the policy document, but I do think it's good for us, and this is something Mr. Brunke and I have already had a brief conversation about now that he is treasurer. One of the things to talk about is understanding that the EDIP revenues are diminishing. I think it makes sense for us as staff to understand specifically what your appetite is for certain portions of the EDIP program, like Part B. And so, and even within Part A. So if we had an application in Part A for a certain type of business, is there an absolute moratorium you want to see on that business? Do you have an appetite for 3 or 4 a year? Do you have a certain dollar threshold? With your permission, we would like to carry on that work to come back to you in the next 30 days, basically at your next meeting, to give you a first cut of what that looks like, because I do think it makes the program stronger, and I think it's the step that we owe you coming out of this work. And Mr. Stiles and I have talked about this briefly as well.
Thank you so much.
Where can we find the Commonwealth Opportunity Fund guidelines to define project types?
So there are 4 Commonwealth programs that we would need to provide you, and I tell you what we'll do. We'll circulate the links to the 4 to all of you individually, and then we'll for the public we can post those on our website as well.
Anything else? Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, next one is- Mr. Couch,
Good morning, Madam Chair, members of the
I
authority.
am so excited about your LifeNet and also the other people that we met this week. You're doing a fantastic job keeping us healthy.
Thank you. I'm here before you today to request a modification in a previous EDIP award for LifeNet. Real quick, there's a quick snapshot of the disclosures associated with LifeNet. I'll let you guys read through it, but obviously we were
Hard
working.
to see it because I guess it's.
I know, I'm sorry about that.
Yeah, don't ever use a beige background.
Got it,
Doesn't work.
got
Can you
it, got
see
it.
it? I think we need
So-
to know the disclosures perhaps.
Right. So a couple principals with Life and Health, the Ronnie Thomas and Gorton Bergstresser, also the legal team of Williams Mullen, their accounting firm of KPMG, their architect is Lyle Design, and their contractor is Ron McIntosh and Mike Siphon. And they have a long list of board of directors. They are self-financed for all of their projects, but it should be noted that one of the building owners has some business with Town Bank and BB&T. Hopefully this is a little more helpful. Most of you are aware of LifeNet, but I'll go through it kind of quickly for some of the other folks in the room. LifeNet is a homegrown company. They've been in operation for 37 years. Their corporate headquarters is off Concert Drive. Their mission is to improve the quality of life through organ procurement and provisions and tissue transplantation, and also to provide education through the community. They are the largest freestanding organ tissue bank in the United States. They are a 501c3 nonprofit organization. That means they do not pay BPOL or sales tax, but they do pay personal property tax and real estate tax. Just a quick snapshot of where they are domestically. They have 4 locations nationally, one obviously here in Virginia Beach, Renton in Washington State, and 2 locations in Florida, and 6 locations here in Virginia Beach. Just a drill down on the locations in Virginia Beach. They have Concert Drive, Ward Court, Bayside Road, Chandler Creek, Sabre 2, and London Bridge, and just kind of see where those locations are throughout Virginia Beach. Some of the previous dealings we've had with them are, we've had 2 land sales over the course of several years. One was a 15.8 acre site for the headquarters location. Then they had their expansion for the regenerative medicine of 6.5 acres. We've done a variety of EDIP awards over the years, approximating $1.9 million. The one we're going to talk about today is the 2017 award, and at that time that was in concert with a Commonwealth Opportunity Fund of also $700,000 and a VGIP grant with the state, which is based off job employment, education opportunities at $288,000. So as part of the 2017 award, we awarded them $700,000, and that award was based off 301 new jobs and also over $12 million in capital investment with the expansion in 3 facilities in Virginia Beach simultaneously. As when they submitted their application to us for the EDIP award, they expressed to us that the average annual salaries associated with those jobs would be over $70,000. As part of that, they miscalculated. It's supposed to exclude benefits. They actually included the benefits in their salary calculations. This past month, we received a letter from them asking for reconsideration of that minimum job thresholds for the salaries and to lower it to $55,375, which would actually exclude the benefits component of it. And that would actually reflect what's going on. I would like to say that Taylor did a really good job of presenting the EDIP program, and you saw the stratification of the salaries and how they're awarded. This adjustment in the salary threshold is within the same strata of the award program. Just to give you a quick snapshot of some of the activity associated with LifeNet and their investment in Virginia Beach, we're talking about the 2017 award, and you can see down at the bottom where we're asking a change in the minimum salary threshold for the award from $70,524 to $55,375. And again, this is within the same strata, and what that would mean that we would pay that $1,163 of the award would create 1 new job, which is well within that strata once again. So, and you can see the grand total of investment in LifeNet in the city of Virginia Beach, over $73 million and almost 1,100 jobs in the city. And it let me mention as well that we have also awarded them another EDIP in 2019 of $100,000 for the activity yet to be anticipated, but that award is contingent upon this award being satisfied. So our recommendation to the authority is for you to allow LifeNet to lower that minimum threshold for the salaries from $70,500 to $55,375. I'd be glad to try to answer any questions.
Does that compare, you mentioned the Commonwealth Opportunity Fund dollars that they got in 2017. How does the salary threshold compare with that? Is it about the same?
They've had conversations with the state, and the state's having a different approach. They're holding a firmer line on their salary thresholds. So what they're doing is they're taking the top quartile, the top strata of the jobs, and claiming jobs up until they meet that $70,000 threshold. So they will not meet the 320 jobs required for the state. So that's a little bit different strategy at the state level versus what we're asking here.
Yes, your motion? Don't all speak at once
So moved.
again. Second? All in favor? Thank you. Opposed? Thank you.
Who was the second?
Well, I don't know.
Joe Strange.
Strange was the second.
I think their counsel is here. Did you have something to add this morning?
Good morning, Easement, Route 1, Stolen, nothing further.
Thank you. Thank you. Was yours opposed?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
I'm sorry, I didn't, okay.
Thank you.
Okay, let's see. Ms. Lancaster, I believe you have the next one. It's a request for approval of a resolution authorizing an award of $75,000 EDIP Part C APZ.
Yes, good morning, Madam Chair and members of the board. This morning I'll be presenting to you an EDIP recommendation for Solar Ray LLC doing business as SRP companies. But first, I would like to welcome and acknowledge Dodd Duquette, who is going to be overseeing the Virginia Beach location. Thank you for coming, Dodd. Start with the disclosures. We have CEO is Darren Eisel, CFO Deanne Bruntz, and Lane Williams is the broker with Colliers. Racking contractors Allen Industrial Services, banking institution, and Terriers Capital, and owner of the property is Still. The company was established in 1969. They are headquartered in Castle Rock, Colorado. This is a consolidation as well as an expansion. So what they will be doing is closing warehouses in 3 warehouses in Pennsylvania, Utah, California, as well as Ohio. They are a leading supplier to over 60,000 retailers nationwide. This Virginia Beach location will be used for receiving, warehousing, and distributing consumer products such as cell phone accessories, sunglasses, toys, and travel accessories. The location is going to be 2600 International Parkway. They will be occupying Bay 4. And they will be a multi-channel management of distribution to various sporting goods, travel centers, resort and tourism, convenience stores, and other channels. I just wanted to give you a visual of some of our products that's in their portfolio. And the project summary is that they will be occupying 218,680 square feet. This is, again, will be for storage, warehouse, and distribution. It has been approved by the Navy for its use. It's an I-1 zoning with an overlay of APZ 1. And the project was referred by Heretta. And this was presented to BVDA closed session back in July. It has been approved by OLUC. The investment is machinery and tools, $150,000. FF&E, a little over $1 million, bring a grand total $1.1 million. The recommendation to the board is for $75,000, Part C. This does meet the capital investment criteria, dollar of EDIP funds yielding $10.50. And it does meet the target industry sector, compatible business use in APZ 1, and also warehouse and distribution.
Noticed people were really interested in their travel pillows and things that they have. And thank you
Yes.
so much for coming. Would you explain to people that are new about our Oceana Land Use Group, and they've already approved it, so therefore it's not on jobs? Or-
You mean the process?
Yes, please, or yes, why,
Well,
I mean, you talk about that, but they don't know, a lot of people, how hard we've tried to keep Oceana and.
right, because of its location being in APC 1, there's a committee, OLUC committee, that it has to go before that board, that committee, to be approved for its use to be in APC 1.
Thank you.
So,
So-
Madam Chair, Madam
Yes, of course.
Just
sir.
want to reiterate our thanks to both, to Heretta for routing this project to us, also to VEDP and the governor for their support as well. And to your point, as you know, for Part C award, OLUC approval is required, and this project certainly has it. Thank you.
No. We're so excited that you're here. Do you have anything you'd like to say?
You want to do that to me?
Oh, no, sir, I certainly don't if you don't want to.
No, we're proud to be here. This is the largest undertaking this company's taken in 50 years. And in
Wow.
doing so, we partnered with the economic development team here and local contractors to assure its success. And it's been fruitful so far. So, we've got our official ribbon cutting on October 23rd, bringing jobs to the area and starting this process rolling. It's been very successful.
We'll try to have most of us at your ribbon cut. We're happy to have you. Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, the next one. Thank you.
We need a motion.
Motion.
I move approval of the request.
Second.
Second.
All in favor? Opposed? Thank you very much. Okay. Request for approval of a drainage easement across authority property to a retention pond and corporate landing. Mr. Cow.
Morning again, Madam Chair. Real quick, I think it was back in April, we came to you for a request for access to a drainage easement on a temporary capacity for Point One data centers, erosion and sediment control permit. And this is just for new folks in the room. The project we're talking about is right here in Corporate Landing, and this would be New Realm as a point of reference. And just another quick shot of where the property is located. And while I have it up here, I'll highlight there is a power line easement right here, and we're talking about access to this large BMP right there that wraps around in front of Geico as well. Back in April, you approved 2 temporary drainage access easements here and here to gain access to that BMP. And Point One has come back to us requesting a permanent access right here. So they went from 2 to 1. Randy helped me out. It's 85 feet wide in width and 150 feet long. And again, it would go underneath the power line easements going along here, and that would be piped and covered. So at some point in the future, if need be, there could be an access road along the power line easement for future use. And this is phase 1 of the project. And you can see it as in terms of its full completion with phase 1 and phase 2, where it would be located. And a point to know as they get into phase 2, this drainage easement would actually serve both sites. They would not need another one. It would actually be able to take place in the same location. And we're here today to ask the authority to grant them access for that permanent drainage easement across their property, underneath the power easement to the BMP.
Is that the same thing as a retention pond?
The BMP? Yes.
I mean, yeah, go ahead.
Oh, I was gonna say, and this might be a question for Randy, what is the capacity left in those ponds? And
That, you're right, that's a good question for Randy.
The ponds are actually being enlarged. What that last slide that was shown showed the enlargement of them to accommodate everything in the park. We had to make some adjustments to what was there. And this is just a pipe that will go through the easement there to access the pond through the authority land, which is encumbered by the easement.
so
Does that
for,
answer your question?
well, for future development of that park, are the
So-
ponds sufficient, or are we gonna have
We're-
to expand
we're-
them?
They will be after the expansion.
Right.
So it's important to note about this project. This is kind of the no harm, no foul easement. It's under a power line. We're never going to be able to build under the power line, and the width is primarily to allow them basically access to maintenance on an ongoing
Maintenance
basis.
and the width is for the future expansions. You can see the back of it. It's like a 10-acre parcel. They're developing the front 5 acres.
Right.
When they do the back 5 acres, they will also use that same easement to go through there with the underground pipe.
By then we'll have enlarged the park and we should be good to go.
Yeah, the path isn't the question.
It's
To me,
the
the question
capacity.
is,
Yeah.
because what they're dumping is the water, and that's.
Yeah, and so that BMP is scheduled to be, is it just less than doubled in size, or more than doubled in size?
It's probably double in
Double.
size because it's just a narrow.
It's just less than double, yeah. So we'll have ample capacity at that point.
Thanks.
Thank you. We need a vote. Motion? Second? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay. What, you want, okay.
Global Links.
Oh, okay. We have a request for approval of resolution approving a management contract with Global Links for corporate landing conduit. Mr. Adams.
So if you would scroll down to page 2 to the terms
I
on
really
this.
can't
This
see
is,
that. Can
this
you-
is,
can you read it?
as we are asking you, this is completion of work. Come on down to the next page, to the terms. Thank you. So as you are asking, as we are asking you to approve a resolution, ultimately a management agreement here, we wanted to go straight to the terms that will actually be executed today. And so this is, you'll recall at your last meeting, we briefed you on where the progress that we were making related to the conduit management system sort of maintenance agreement and operating agreement with Global Links. Also, you'll remember there was there was $140,000 that was sent to us by City Council that you also advanced to Mr. Twitt and to Global Length. So working through this, these are the final terms. I want to thank the City Attorney's Office for their work in helping us complete this agreement. But you can see this is the facilities and underground conduit system along both sides of Corporate Landing Parkway. The owners of City of Virginia Beach Development Authority, the manager, Global Links Data LLC. This is a 10-year initial term with one that allows for one 5-year renewal at the mutual approval or mutual option of the parties. The manager's responsibility is essentially to lease this space to third parties who need to basically, we hope, connect to the carrier neutral hotel facility that he has built there. He is responsible for operation and security, as well as 24-hour support, preventative and emergency maintenance, and then he's to maintain an inventory system to basically so that we know what's been installed. His compensation will be $156,000 per year that we will pay monthly. A $1,500 documentation fee for each third-party lease signed, a 5% commission for each third-party lease signed, and the right to use 2 conduits during the term of the agreement at no charge. Additional expenses, we will be reimbursing the manager for expenses expenses basically as they're approved each year. The initial budget is $72,300 plus 20% for contingency and emergencies. Finally, BVDA to approve the form of the lease and any changes to the lease rate, and VBDA to receive all proceeds from leases after manager compensation. So understand the development agreement is a much longer document, but these are the terms straight from the resolution that we will sign pending your approval here today, and we would ask for your approval of this matter. We've been working, so we're about 6 months into to this development agreement, and like I say, we ask for your approval.
Any questions?
We anticipate the proceeds from the leases.
When do we anticipate?
What do you anticipate? Is there a pro forma on that?
There is, however, at this point, I mean, it would be speculative at best. We understand that there are 3 to 4 potential occupants that could come into the system right away. We understand that there are a couple of large players that are potentially out there as well. The reality is, at this point, though, we've not seen a proposal from any of those. Once advancing beyond this stage, we'd begin firming that up. The big thing and the reason for that sequencing is without an operator, it's just dead conduit in the ground. We lack the ability to fill them ourselves and to operate and maintain this. Also, our initial construction going back a year ago of the conduit bank always contemplated that we would have an operator. It never contemplated that the development authority would be the operator of the conduit management system. We just don't have the expertise to do it. And so for us, our next phase would be to sort of build out the ROI with the operator based on what he believes he can sell. It's important to know he's also our leasing agent, so he's the guy that's out there marketing the conduit management system.
Do we start paying him before he leases anything?
We do.
We start right off the bat.
How long are we committed to pay him?
I'm sorry, I didn't
How
hear.
long are we committed to pay him? It's just annually?
10 years.
10 years.
Yes, sir.
Taylor, do you want to explain how the undersea cables connect to
Sure. So
park, and how this is sort of the key
Yes.
to getting those data
So
centers?
backing up ahead of this, so if you'll remember from our last presentation, we talked about ourselves being a city on an interstate without an off-ramp. And that's how I think of our current environment with these subsea cables. So the cables come in to the Telsius landing station, and that bandwidth goes straight north. And so basically there's this information superhighway blowing right through Virginia Beach, and the only difference is we're that town on the interstate that doesn't have an off-ramp. To get an off-ramp, we needed first a carrier neutral hotel, which is, again, and the joke I always make, I love the names that IT people come up with things, come up for things. But yes, so the first phase of that is a carrier-neutral hotel, and within that carrier-neutral hotel, there is what's called a meet me room, and what that is, and so that facility allows us to capture some of that bandwidth. It creates the off ramp, but the off ramp is just the first. If you think about an interstate, an off ramp that doesn't have a street at the end of it still doesn't go anywhere. And so the conduit management system that the authority elected to build a year ago creates the streets that can connect into the off-ramp. And so for us, that's 2 twin packs of 4-inch conduit, 6 each on either side of Corporate Landing Way. And so for us, we now have the interstates coming through here. The carrier-neutral hotel is built with the meet me room that creates the off-ramp. We've built the streets. This next step that we're asking you to make, though, by naming an operator, basically connects the streets to the off-ramp so that we can actually start leasing these. And so yes, there is some unknown expense to us as it relates to, and well, I shouldn't say expense. We're in an unknown environment as to how quickly we can fill the conduit bank. But at this point, it is built, and if we don't name an operator, I mean, it basically becomes just dark conduit in the ground that we don't really have the ability to do anything with. And it's important to note that in the time that we've been negotiating this development agreement, there have been two providers that could have gone into our duct bank that bypassed us because they had to get their fiber in the ground to accommodate other customers. So I mean, we're anxious to do this, but it's but admittedly we are sort of we don't have all the answers for you as it relates to how quickly we can fill it here today.
Do they have to produce to get paid any of the money or no?
I didn't hear you.
Do they have to produce to get paid any of the money or no? Just for 10 years?
Anything above the management fee, yes, but the management fee is earned.
That's right.
They don't do anything.
Correct.
That's right.
What I think an important component of this, one, we went through a bid process, and two, there are groups that are actively working to get an off-ramp in Virginia Beach and take that conduit to Richmond.
So,
Richmond is making a big play for data centers in
That's right.
Henrico County, and they're counting on it coming
So-
through Virginia Beach. So one of the keys to this is, one, we've got an operator that can be out there recruiting those data centers to keep them here in Virginia Beach. And two, unless it changed, I believe there was a requirement in the agreement that that their users aren't gonna take the conduit to Richmond, they're gonna use it in Corporate Landing, so.
We have approval over the user, so that's.
Corporate Landing and surrounding areas. But that is accurate. I mean, and this has been in the paper. This is no secret. There's talk of the Richmond, Virginia Beach super region for sort of IT and whatnot. And that's exactly right. The other proposal that we received 2 proposals for this project. The other one would have done that. It was basically using this conduit bank to sort of build the Richmond, Virginia Beach super region. And it's important to note that firm was based in Richmond. And so we do know that it was their intent to capture our signal and export it to Richmond and build that way because they felt that was closer in proximity to the activity that's in Northern Virginia and an easier next step, whereas the plan that we have here today, it's important to note we have the operator with whom we are proposing to move forward is here, not just here today, has made a significant investment in our community, is here today, is operating today, is waiting to tie in to our facility so that basically he can accelerate and basically start marketing our park. We also believe that our ability to put other data centers in Corporate Landing and in some of the surrounding parcels is directly tied to our ability to capture signal and get it into this conduit bank.
Yeah, I guess I think it's fantastic, all for it, but I can't in good conscience commit to 10 years at $156,000 with zero.
Understand.
Guarantee of anything. I don't know why and it's probably not an industry standard. I don't know anything about it, but at least give us something before we start. You could
Sure.
look
I understand.
for one deal before you. So it's probably industry standard. I don't know enough about it.
Thank you.
How many off-ramps are there?
This would be the only one.
This will be the only one?
The only one here, yes, sir.
I mean, here, but I mean,
So the rest of them are, I mean, in Ashburn, they're plentiful.
Oh.
But this will be the only one serving this area.
Is there an out in the contract if they don't perform?
No, sir. I mean, but again, the alternative is to know, we've built the conduit management system at this point. And I mean, if we don't move forward at this point, so at minimum, it's 6 months before we're back at the table again. But also it's important to note that this is not something that the city can operate, or not something the authority can operate. So we did an RFP. We solicited it everywhere. We got 2 responses. It's important to note, as it relates to industry standard, the fee structures were effectively uniform within the 2 that we got. It's probably also important to note that the IT industry doubts that we can be successful here. So the reason that we're not seeing a lot of activity is there is a growing conversation within the Commonwealth that because of hurricanes, sea level rise, all of the challenges that we have here, that we're not a city that can be successful in sort of the data center construction and management and sort of operation business. We've not seen that to be true. We continue to see strong activity, but it's important to note that part of this price probably comes back from the fact that the industry is skeptical about us, and we've heard that all over the Commonwealth.
Why don't you tell them about the approval of Easement?
And so I mean, so yes, I mean, 2 Tuesdays ago, City Council approved a zoning change on a portion of what's sort of commonly known as the Taylor Farm. It's in a Navy restricted easement for construction of 170,000 square foot data center. We certainly believe that creates that, and that's sort of to the point of we believe we can be successful here. We absolutely believe we can be successful here. We have point 1 now. We've done the groundbreaking on point 1. We've just completed the zoning approval for next bin, so they're at the point where they can move forward now as well. We see these activities coming. We believe that we can be successful here, but it's important to note that that there are those in the market, particularly around Northern Virginia and Richmond, that doubt that we can. And I think that's what's driving probably the price you're seeing here.
Being death, and it's not a doubt whether we can be successful.
Sure.
I just can't imagine being stuck in a contract with somebody that has 0 performance. I mean, can't you say a 2-year, if you don't perform in 2 years, I mean, the management structure might fall off, but who knows what could happen to them, up their pay, I don't care, but 10 years is a long time, and they can prevent us from moving forward because they might not be, I don't know. I'm sure they're a great company.
Sure. Oh, yeah, so.
It's just a deal that I would never walk into.
Okay. So it's important to know, transparency matrix for the public. Our only means of getting a deal like this to you is to run an RFP. And so when we do the RFP, we get the proposals we get. If we're, I don't mind telling you, I believe the company can deliver. They've been a good partner for us through the negotiation. And I believe there's some other activities that they're working that could be important for us, assuming that we're able to get this done. That said, it's my job to sort of to evaluate the proposals, get them in the form. We worked with the attorney's office to put a development agreement together, consistent on the terms that we showed the authority, I think last month before. But I will tell you, I mean, I'm here to serve you all. If you don't like what we're bringing you, I mean, the alternative would be we could either continue negotiating with this provider, which I believe would terminate our agreement with them, because he's, I will tell you, he is in a place where he needs to move. He needs to know what's going on here, or we can go back out. Yeah.
So contextually, I mean, performance is not necessarily generation of new business. Performance is operation and maintenance of the system.
That's right.
Which includes security of the system. So we have to be able to guarantee that the system has the security for the data running through there, and that is the ongoing, everyday performance that he has to perform.
So they're not marketing this, they're just running the infrastructure?
No,
Yes and yes.
They are marketing it, but they are our agent in this conduit bank. They are marketing our system. They are They are charging for access to the tubes, but to Ron's point, they are operating the system for us as well. And this is just, I'll also admit that why are they our marketing agent as well? We don't know the players in this business and aren't in a position to really ever know them. I mean, we can go to all of the conferences and all the trade shows in the world that won't get us at the table necessarily with data center providers that are interested in Virginia Beach. We need somebody who is closely connected to and lives within that industry every day.
Are there third-party resellers that could be in there besides them? Because right now our hands are tied to one person selling, that's all.
Yeah, I don't know the answer to that. I mean, all I can tell you is when we sort of sent out a solicitation to the entire world and Commonwealth, we got 2 people that were interested in doing this for us.
One to send it to Richmond and then one here.
That's right. And it's important to note one who is here, who has made Virginia Beach his home and is trying to grow a business here and is committed to our community. I think that's an important thing not to lose.
And already built the facility.
And has already built, a significant facility with which he is now proposing to expand. Yeah.
And pretty early on, Taylor, we ruled out the possibility of having somebody in Virginia Beach IT operate the system for us. That was just not something that there was capacity for, correct?
That's correct. I mean, this is just not a core. So our IT group does a great job and do a great job managing the city's infrastructure. But this type of system is just not within their core competency. I mean, this is a purely commercial activity that is meant to, sort of grow the local, consistent with the charge that you all have to grow the local economy. It fits here. It does not fit with what our IT group does every day.
Okay. Anything else? Motion?
I'm gonna move approval of this item.
Thank you. Second?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Thank you.
Thank you.
It passed, thank you. Okay. This is okay, building. This is David.
Morning again,
Thank
Madam
you.
Chair.
I'm so excited about this, as you know. I was over there with you and we saw some of our winners of our.
Correct. You may remember that back in August, we had an approval of a lease for the bioaccelerator space at Convergence 2. And actually at the August meeting as well, we briefed you on facility logics and some opportunities for some agreements at that point in time to assist us with the consultation of it, the design, construction, and ongoing management of that. We're here today to finalize that at least first agreement associated with facility logics. And this is a specialty company that works in this area and actually worked with us back in 2014 when we first started the bio initiative and is well versed in our position within the market. Ooh, sorry. The stakeholders associated with this are Pat Larrabee and Lynn Cooper, who work with the primaries for facility logics. They were just here this past Friday, actually. And what we're here today to talk really about is the consultation service agreement, but I'll give you a little bit of background about the fee development agreement, also the property management agreement as well. So there's 3 basic agreements we're shooting for with facility logics as we move forward. The consultation service agreement, that would be a flat fee of $10,857 a month for 7 months, and what that'll allow us to do, or for them to do for us, is to assist us with space design, program development, sublease, and fit-up plan for the bioaccelerator space, SOPs, standard operating procedures as we manage the space moving forward, and budget development, which is really a good bit of it as well. And they do have some straight pass-through expenses associated with the travel. And they estimate that the space will be ready in 10 months, but we're talking to them and trying to accelerate that timeline wherever we can, and we think we can do that. As I mentioned, the fee development agreement, that is going to be primarily for the design of the space and the construction of the space and overseeing the contractors and also working with the property owner, which would be at Convergence 2. and ultimately also identifying the equipment to be either leased or purchased as associated with the ongoing operation of the space. That's not something we're good at, so we're asking them to help us with that, and also to the ongoing management of that equipment. Here's a quick snapshot of what that potential budget could look like. This is just a general swag done back in July, and we're looking at about $1.6 million in the design, construction, the equipment upfitting of the space, and most of that's associated with the design and the construction of the space, and also a good bit of it associated with equipment. The property management agreement, that would be the ongoing operation of the facility on our behalf through the term of the lease as we see fit associated with them. We're also talking about a virtual accelerator model as well. In our conversations and travels, we've talked to a variety of folks on the West Coast and other international markets that really like that, where they like to have an East Coast footprint in the bioaccelerator space, and a virtual presence would be very good for them. That means they would have an address here and have a home base, but not always physically be here, and be connected to the resources that we have in the market. They would also have a person that would be on site, primarily on a part-time basis on the front end, and that as we start to lease up that space, they would start to be there on a more permanent basis. And that person would not only work in the daily operation of the space, but also in the networking and we had a lot of conversations in networking for these folks, and access to VCs and those types of things are very important to these companies locating in the space. And we're so early on in the process of how this would work, we haven't really identified a cost associated with that. But some of the preliminary conversations we've had in this past week, we feel that we can get to that kind of quickly. So what we're here today to do is to request the Bvds approval for you to allow the chair to enter into the consultation agreement with Facility Logics as outlined. That is just the preliminary step associated with identifying cost and design and the construction of the space, and them talking to various stakeholders and how that would come together. And as Ms. Wood mentioned earlier this week, they've had conversations, you may remember, of our Bioaccelerator Challenge, the VB Bio Challenge that we had. They're having a lot of conversations with those challenge winners to find out what they would need and how they would operate and how their products and services would provide would be appropriate for this type of space. And then we come back to you in subsequent months for the fee development agreement and also the property management agreement, and we'll bring those to you as they get solidified. So I'd be glad to try to answer any questions.
It is really the most exciting thing for me that we've had. Tell real quickly about the lung they were talking about last week. They're gonna make lungs, or, no, that doesn't make sense. But what did they say? Artificial lungs? They were showing us the picture.
Yeah, I mean, some of the
amazing.
So the accelerator space is open to anybody in the bio industry sector, and it's primarily for small and startup companies, but the challenge winners are primarily the first movers into the space. We have a variety of other stakeholders and companies that have an interest in the Hampton Roads, Virginia Beach market. But to your point, some of the challenge winners are very innovative as in terms of their medical devices they're coming up with, or therapeutics or processes that they've come. It's very moving to see how smart some of these people are.
So, Madam Chair, may I be recognized?
Yeah, of course.
Two things quickly on this one, just in line with the questions that we got on the last item. One, the challenge winners, this one opens with 19 people paying rent in it. And so it's important to note this one, the day that we stand this deal up, we open with 19 startups paying rent as a baseline. So there is a return on your investment here. The other thing that's important to note here, you'll remember that we had a much larger facility proposed within the innovation park. The costs that you're seeing here are roughly a third of the initial budgeted cost on that facility from what would be 4.5 years ago now. Forwarding those costs today with the information that we have today, what you're seeing here is this costs a quarter, about 25% of the proposed build out of the space that we were talking about doing in the sort of in the innovation park. Also important to note, that the base rent on the facility in the Innovation Park was a shade over $550,000 a year in year one, with a 3% escalator for 25 years. So we believe that this is a much improved deal over what we were initially proposed to bring you with the larger facility in the biopark, Innovation Park.
And I've asked David, since he has such a long history, or not long, a history with healthcare, to serve with you and the people. And this is probably one of the more exciting things we've had. Thank you. I need a motion. Second.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Thank you.
Thank you.
It's been an exciting month. We have you had a trip to Germany, and while you were gone, we went to Steel. And Joe was there with Peter and Lisa, and it was amazing to see, and David and a lot of the staff members, it was amazing to hear them talk about how wonderful Virginia Beach is from Germany. I mean, you sit there and you just beamed, didn't we? Because you don't hear that as often. So Steele is so happy to be here, and this was Dr. Steele and all the board, and they just said they've worked so much with you and the team, and it's going to be a nice partnership. And they talked a lot about Peter, and because Peter, I think, started it, didn't he?
Peter was responsible in 1974, I think it
That's
was,
right.
for bringing steel to Virginia Beach.
And he is with some people, I think, from Steele right now down in Southern Virginia shooting for whatever you shoot for. I mean,
He was responsible for bringing that whole facility over there.
Yeah.
And so he was the guy in charge of every bit of it.
and aren't we lucky to
He's
have
a pretty
him?
amazing guy, really.
Yeah.
We talked to him.
Well, I hope he's successful shooting. He told me he was going to come and leave after the meeting, but there's some birds are down there, so I don't know. And then also our NECA has gotten a wonderful award this month. Can you believe that we work with a woman who's the outstanding Washingtonian, and she received an award on Wednesday from the Washingtonian magazine? We're very proud of you. I'm happy to have you with us.
Happy to be from Virginia Beach.
Yes.
Sir,
3 very quick things from
Yes.
my report, if I can do it.
yes, quick, because we're
Quick,
late.
yeah, very quick. So yes, first things about Steele, and just, there's no better example of why we do what we do and sort of the work that you all do. And I want to commend all of you for and the authority for its support over the years for Steele. We did a little quick math, and we found out we made our first EDIP award to Steele in 1996. Now, you all just learned that the program has only existed since 1994. But over that time, there have been 5 EDIPs that were awarded to Steele, totaling $1.8 million. For that $1.8 million that you invested generated $184,900,000 in new construction. Now, understand, these are the dollars that we paid in that time. So the $20 million award in 1990, or the $20 million worth of capital investment in 1996, and the $60 million in February of 2003 that Steele invested in our community would be worth significantly more if we were to rate it in today's dollars. So what does that mean? It means that you basically, your investment generated $185 million was basically 0.9% of the total investment that Steele has made in our community. For that, you've gotten over 2,100 employees, and now 4 ancillary advanced manufacturers that came here specifically with the intent of providing products to the steel plant here, but are now selling products all over the country. Sanyo, Proofrex, great examples of that. Sanyo now has expanded there, so they have a dedicated sales agent working Detroit for automotive parts as they're continuing to grow here. In meeting with them, and Laura's going to talk about our trip in just a minute, we learned last week that they anticipate that their sales will increase. Their sales here in their U.S. facility will increase by 50% in this year alone. And so these are the opportunities that Steele creates here every day, and it's the reason that we all do what we do. And it's the reason we make these investments in the community. That's enough talking for me. Now, I'd like to let a couple of members of my team speak. Laura was going to offer a quick highlight on our trip last week.
Thank you.
So we were
in Spain last week, which is an exciting market for us because unlike other markets within Europe, we feel like it's very untapped. When we go to these companies, they're not as familiar with EDOs and the services we can provide. Unlike other markets, when we go meet with companies, it's like, oh, Texas was here last week, Florida, I mean, it's kind of like we're fighting in the lines. So we had 15 meetings in Spain, 3 were with multipliers. One in particular was PMEC. And I guess the easiest way to describe what that is to the group is it's similar to a chamber, but each of their services are very different around Europe. So PMEC has about 128,000 members, and these are companies that are small to medium sized, a lot of them manufacturing, and so they help kind of focus our efforts and help weed out, who might be interested in expanding to the United States. So we're working with them exclusively. We're the only EDO working with them, and we held meetings with them individually. We're going back 2 more times within the next 4 or 5 months, and then with the goal of finding several companies that will come to visit us in April and see what Virginia Beach has to offer. So, and then there's some others that we can talk about.
Thank you.
And then Charlie's got one update.
Yes, Madam Chair, as you recall, in August, this body had approved the acquisition of 2 updated appraisal reports, one in corporate landing and one in the Bio Innovation Park. We've been advised by our internal partners, Public Works Real Estate, that the notice to proceed will be given tomorrow, and we're hopeful to have those reports in hand in 30 days.
Thank you. Getting back to steel real quickly, I don't know if the newer people might not have toured. Maybe when Peter gets back, if you would like to go on a tour, it is the most fantastic place to you watch them put boxes together. That's my favorite. And and it's like manufacturing, and it's just all automated. We're very proud.
We'll set that up.
Okay.
And they have
Thank
an
you.
amazing chainsaw display in the entryway.
And instead of cutting a ribbon, the mayor cut with a
A log.
chainsaw a log, pretty big log, but I'm sure it was probably halfway cut. So anyway, thank you. But it was nice. Anything else? Mr. Adams, you have anything else?
No, we're good.
Thank you.
Taylor, one question on the Bio Challenge and the Bio Initiative. Dot keeps mentioning these different companies. It might be helpful if we have some time on an agenda to hear from a couple of the winners and hear about what types of things they're doing and, get folks excited about what's going on.
We can absolutely do that for you. There are 4 in particular that I think would be really excited for the authority to sort of hear what they have coming. So we'll set that up. Thank you.
Yeah, David will work with you because he's working on that here with us. Thank you. Okay. The chair will entertain a motion to recess into a closed session pursuant to the exemptions from open meetings allowed by 2.2-3711 Code of Virginia as amended for the following purposes. Publicly held property. Discussion or consideration of the acquisition of real property for a public purpose, or the disposition of publicly held real property where discussion in an open meeting would adversely affect the bargaining position or negotiating strategy of the public body, pursuant to Virginia Code 2.2-3711A3. Prospective business or industry. Discussion concerning a prospective business or industry or the expansion of an industry where no previous announcement has been made by the business interest in locating or expanding its facilities in the community, pursuant to Virginia Code 2.2-3711A5. Contracts. Discussion of the award of a public contract involving the expenditure of public funds, including interviews and discussions of terms of such a contract where discussion in an open session would adversely affect the bargaining position or negotiating strategy of the public body, pursuant to Virginia Code 2.2-3711A30. Do I have a
So moved.
second?
Second.
Sure. You gonna call?
David Byrne,
Yes.
William Brunke, Nika Shazor,
Yes.
Taylor Franklin,
Yes.
Kenny Morgan, Peter Mueller, Lisa Murphy.
Yes.
Mike Standing.
Yes.
Joe Strange.
Yes.
Dot Wood.
Yes.
All right. Thank you.
Okay.